the council, also the staff in the legislative branch. Good morning, Mr. President, Vice President, to all the executive branch. Good morning to Madam Chief Justice and all the justices out there, and all the judicial branch employees, and then all the chapters. Good morning, and chapter administration. Thank you very much for listening in, and all the people, all the Navajo people and visitors listening in here within the Four Sacred Mountains and outside the Four Sacred Mountains. Good morning, Bena. Thank you very much for being with us during our 24th Navajo Nation Council 4th year spring session. Today's date again is April 19th. Let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. Where are thou pin? 10:08 a.m. is the time we'll call this meeting to order. We are here in Window Rock, Arizona on the Great Navajo Nation. This is a via teleconference call, but just for the record, I do have Honorable Paul Begay, Madam Chair Amber Crotty, Honorable Wilson Stewart, Honorable Edison Winika, and I do believe I've seen Honorable Mark Freeland earlier here this morning with us in the chamber. So again, good morning to everyone. That we did the roll call. Well, let me just introduce myself again. My name is Seth Damon, Speaker of the 24th Navajo Nation Council. I'll be presiding over as a chair of the meeting. So let's go ahead and move on down to a roll call, and then after that, we'll go ahead and continue on down. Again, good morning, everyone.
Good morning, honorable members. Honorable Elmer Begay. Honorable Elmer Begay. Honorable Elmer Begay did not answer roll call. Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr.
Delegate Key Allen is present. Thank you.
Honorable Key Allen Begay answered roll call. Honorable Paul Begay.
Delegate Paul Begay is present.
Honorable Paul Begay is present. Honorable Nathaniel Brown. Honorable Nathaniel Brown.
Delegate Brown is present.
Honorable Nathaniel Brown answered roll call. Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton. Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton. Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton is present. Honorable Amber Canasva Crotty. Honorable Amber Canasva Crotty. Honorable Amber Canasva Crotty did not answer roll call. Honorable Speaker Seth Damon is present. Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr.
Good morning, present.
Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr. answered roll call. Honorable Mark Freeland. Honorable Mark Freeland. Honorable Mark Freeland did not answer roll call. Honorable Pernell Halona.
Delegate Hello is present. Good morning.
Honorable Pernell Halona answered roll call. Honorable Jamie Hino. Honorable Jamie Hino. Honorable Jamie Hino.
He is present.
Honorable Jamie Hino answered roll call. Honorable Vince James. Honorable Vince James. Honorable Vince James did not answer roll call. Honorable Rick Nez.
Delegate Rick Nez is present.
Honorable Rick Nez answered roll call. Honorable Carl Slater.
Present.
Honorable Carl Slater answered roll call. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr.
Present.
Honorable Raymond Smith Jr. answered roll call. Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr. Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr. is present. Honorable Otto So.
I am present. Thank you.
Honorable Otto So answered. Roll call. Honorable Charlene So.
I'm present.
Honorable Charlene So answered. Roll call. Honorable Daniel So.
I'm here.
Honorable Daniel So answered. Roll call. Honorable Eugene So. Honorable Eugene So answered. Roll call. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. did not answer. Roll call. Honorable Edison Winika. Honorable Edison Winika is present. Honorable Edmund Yazzie. Honorable Edmund Yazzie. Honorable Edmund Yazzie answered. Roll call. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair did not answer. Roll call. Going back up. Honorable Elmer Begay.
I'm present.
Honorable Elmer Begay answered. Roll call. Honorable Amber Canespa Crotty. Honorable Amber Canespa Crotty is present. Honorable Mark Freeland.
I'm present.
Honorable Mark Freeland answered. Roll call. Honorable Vince James. Honorable Vince James. Honorable Vince James did not answer. Roll call. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. did not answer. Roll call. Honorable Vin, excuse me. Honorable Vince James is present via text. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair did not answer. Roll call. Speaker, you have 22 members present, including yourself.
Thank you very much. With that, colleagues, we have 22 members present.
Speaker, this is Delegate Amber Canes-Balcrotty. I'm present. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you. Good morning. Yeah, we're good. Good morning, Madam Chair. Roddy, we are good to go. With that, colleagues, let's go ahead and continue on down as we did. Just for a recap, we did approve our agenda yesterday. On our first day, we did hear the State of the Nation address, and the President of the Navajo Nation received a report from the Chief Justice of the Navajo Nation, received a report from myself, the Speaker of the Navajo Nation Council for the Legislative Branch, and then also received a financial report from the Controller's Office yesterday evening or last night. With that, we did get moving on to oral and written reports. We did accept those two as well. So now, as us moving forward, we are on to 10 old business, and which is item number A. So with that, that's where we continue to start off on today with Mr. Rico. If we could go ahead and get legislation 0232-21. I know there was a motion and a second. Sponsors by myself. Before I give a recap, let me go ahead and All right, colleagues, I thought there was a co-sponsor to this legislation. But we do not have a co-sponsor. So if there's a chair that could take over at this time, colleagues. Or if there was anyone here within the chambers that'd like to chair the meeting. If there's anyone that'd like to chair at this time. Don't need to be a chair.
Chairman
Speaker,
Kelly.
this is Vice Chair Smith.
Vice Chair Smith. Good morning, Vice Chair.
Good morning, sir. I'll go ahead and chair.
All right, thank you very much, Vice Chair Smith. I'll toss the virtual gavel to you and go from there. Floor's
Thank
yours.
you. Appreciate that. You're the sponsor of this legislation. We have now old
Mr.
business.
Chair, Mr. Speaker, this is Mariana Khan.
Marianne Khan, this is Pro Temp Speaker, Vice Chair Smith. You have the floor. Go ahead.
Mr. Pro Tem, I want to bring to your attention, Mr. Speaker, and Vice Chairman Raymond Smith, that Title II, Section 287A, with regard to a pro tem speaker, it says, when a quorum of the Navajo Nation Council is present at any duly called regular or special meeting, the members present, in absence of the speaker, may select from among the chairpersons of the standing committees to serve as pro tem chair until the speaker arrives. And I do believe that should be used in this particular situation, Mr. Speaker. A chair of a standing committee should be the individual who should be chairing this particular council session at this time. Mr. Speaker, thank you for listening to me.
Mr.
Thank you for that information, Ms. Khan. Back to the speaker. I know that we did this on that special session. I think it was the beginning of April here, and that was on a legislation on the ARPA funds, and there was a pro temp speaker that was placed on board, and we had speaker even within the and that was what I recall. I'll turn the floor over to Speaker Damon. Speaker Damon.
Thank you very much. I do agree with Ms. Marianne Khan that does apply, Mr. Vice Chair Smith, and to colleagues, members of the 24th Navajo Nation Council. If I wasn't here, in the absence, it says in the absence of the speaker, but I am present. So if you look onto, what is the other clause? Anyways. Well, colleagues, thank you. I don't want to go down any more confusion and rabbit holes. So, Madam Chair, Charles Newton, as a.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you, colleagues. Good morning, everyone. Speaker, we do have before us the first order of business today, which is legislation 0 0232-21, sponsored by yourself, Speaker Damon. This is old business. I guess at this point, I do have to ask Mr. Rico, does this legislation have to be read for today's purposes? Okay, so what we need to do is we need to establish a motion in a second to remove this remove this legislation off the table so that we could have discussions on this. So committee members, we do need a motion in a second to take this legislation 0232-21 off the table. Motion made by Honorable Pernell Halona, second by Honorable Eugene So. So with that, we do have a motion in the second established to get this legislation off the table. Do we just go straight to roll call, Mr. Rico? Okay, yes, we go straight to roll call. Ms. Nota, can you assist us with roll call vote? And again, colleagues, this is to vote on legislation 0232-21 to take it off the table.
Honorable Elmer Begay.
I vote green.
Honorable Elmer Begay votes green. Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr.
Cal votes green. Thank you.
Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr. votes green. Honorable Paul Begay.
Delegate Paul Begay votes green.
Honorable Paul Begay votes green. Honorable Nathaniel Brown.
Delegate Brown votes green.
Honorable Nathaniel Brown votes green. Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton. Oh, I'm
Javi,
sorry.
I don't vote since I'm chairing.
Honorable Amber Canaspa Crotty. Honorable Amber Canaspa Crotty. Honorable Amber Canaspa Crotty did not vote. Honorable Speaker Seth Damon. Honorable Speaker Seth Damon votes green. Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr.
Green.
Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr. votes green. Honorable Mark Freeland.
I vote green.
Honorable Mark Freeland votes green. Honorable Pernell Halona. Honorable Pernell
green.
Halona. Honorable Pernell Halona votes green. Honorable Jamie Henio. Honorable
Henio
Jamie
votes green.
Henio. Honorable Jamie Henio votes green. Honorable Vince James. Honorable Vince James. Honorable Vince James did not vote. Honorable Rick Nez.
Delegate Rick Nez votes green.
Honorable Rick Nez votes green. Honorable Carl Slater.
Delegate Slater, red.
Honorable Carl Slater votes red. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr.
Green.
Honorable Raymond Smith Jr. votes green. Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr.
Green.
Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr. votes green. Honorable Otto So. Honorable Otto So votes green. Honorable Charlene So.
I vote green.
Honorable Charlene So votes green. Honorable Daniel So.
I vote red.
Honorable Daniel So votes red. Honorable Eugene So.
Oh, please don't say it.
Honorable Eugene So votes green. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr.
Thomas Walker votes green.
Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. votes green. Honorable Edison Winika. Honorable Edison Winika votes green. Honorable Edmund Yazzie.
Green.
Honorable Edmund Yazzie votes green. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair.
Delegate
Honorable,
Yellowhair votes green.
Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair votes green. Going back up. Honorable Amber Canespa Crotty. Honorable Amber Canespa Crotty votes green via text. Honorable Vince James. Honorable Vince James. Honorable Vince James did not vote. Speaker Pro Temp with the vote of 20 in favor, 2 oppose, and Speaker Pro Temp not voting.
Thank you for that, Ms. Nota. So with that, the legislation 0232-21 is now off the table. Mr. Rico, if you could assist us by reading the history of what transpired with this legislation into the record, so, and as a means of reminding our colleagues why this legislation was tabled. Mr. Rico.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. Tracking number 0232-21, an action relating to Resource Development Committee, Navajo Committee, and Navajo Nation Council, approving oil and gas operating agreements between the Navajo Nation and Navajo Nation Oil and Gas Company 4, Tohatchi Wash, Beautiful Mountain, and Porcupine Dome. This legislation is sponsored by Honorable Speaker Seth Damon. There are committee reports from the Resource and Development Committee that recommend a due pass with no amendment. A committee report from the Navajo Committee that recommend a pass and refer to the Navajo Nation Council. And there is a council report dated January 27th, 2022. The legislation was tabled. There was a motion by Honorable Wilson C. Stewart Jr., second by Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr., with a vote of 22 in favor, 1 opposed. Speaker Pro Tem Charles Newman not voting. This legislation was tabled for no longer than Navajo Nation Council spring session to provide proper documents for possible amendments, including a profit sharing agreement approved by the Navajo Nation Oil and Gas Company Board and relevant chapters, grazing district committees, and Department of Justice. You do have a motion by Honorable Charlene So and a second by Honorable Nathaniel Brown. Madam Speaker Pro Tem.
Thank you for that, Mr. Rico. So with that, committee members, the legislation and the history of the legislation has been read into the record. We'll go ahead and now turn the floor over to Speaker Damon. You have 3 minutes to recap. Speaker Damon, the floor is yours.
No,
Madam Chair, Speaker Pro Tem is Delegate Brown. I wanted
Delegate
to
Nathaniel
withdraw my
Brown.
I wanted to withdraw my second to this motion. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Delegate Nathaniel Brown, I don't know what you're talking about. The second was established by Honorable Eugene So.
Madam Pro Tem, the second to the main legislation to get this for the presentation to take place. So it was myself, I second, and Delegate Charlene So motion.
Thank you for that, Delegate Brown. I honestly don't know if that is relevant because you did motion and second for this legislation, and as was read into the record, this legislation was then tabled, and then now the vote has been established to take it back off the table. So what you're saying is you want to remove your second for the legislation. So Dana, Mr. Rico, can we get some guidance on what this will mean, and then also what we can do to get back to providing the recap, the 3-minute recap to Speaker Damon? Dana or Mr. Rico?
Madam Speaker Pro Tem. Honorable Brown is the second to the main motion. So he can withdraw his second. You would just ask for if there's any other delegates who would like to second this legislation, and then we can continue. Madam Chair, or Madam Speaker Pro Tem.
Thank you for that, Mr. Rico. So with that, the recommendation is at this point to withdraw Honorable Nathaniel Brown as the second party committee members. Is there anybody here who would like to second the main motion? Second by Honorable Pernell Halona. So let the record reflect that the second is now by Honorable Pernell Halona. Thank you for that, Mr. Rico. So with that, we'll go ahead and proceed forward. Speaker Damon, you do have 3 minutes to recap.
Thank you very much, and Pro Tem Speaker Charles Newton. Thank you very much, first and foremost, for allowing me to present and you taking the helm this morning, as always, Madam Chair, or Madam Pro Tem Speaker. The question here now is, sorry, I don't know who that was, but the question here now is this: I bring to you the legislation 023-21, and this legislation is an action related to our Resource and Development Committee, Navajo Committee, and ultimately up to the Navajo Nation Council. As this is as this is owned now by the Navajo Nation Council, I'm just a part of the portion of sponsoring this legislation. And this is approving an oil and gas agreements between the Navajo Nation and the Navajo Nation Oil and Gas Company, specifically on helium. Colleagues, this legislation has been talked about, went through the process, and there was recommendations that we were going to put forth in providing documents and possible amendments, including a profit sharing agreement that has been going and been reviewed through the Navajo Nation Oil and Gas Board, through the relevant chapters, and then also by the Department of Justice and the Navajo Nation Minerals Department. Colleagues, those agreements are still continuing on as we speak, even to today. And the recommendation, as I would put forth to the council to not delay any more further time, is that I would recommend, colleagues, if you could please refer legislation 0232-21 and an agreement to back to this legislation back to the Navajo Committee, due to the fact that we are continuously still working on an agreement between local individuals in the community representing the chapters, local leaders, local individuals that are still requesting questions, and then also meeting to meet the requirements on a monetary basis that would possibly change the direction of any type of agreement that is made between local communities and the mother government too as well. And we just want to make sure we're going down the right path. So with that, Madam Chair, Madam Pro Tem Speaker Charles Newton, and members of the 24th Navajo Nation Council, I respectfully request that this legislation to not take up too much time today, but just in further have discussions at Navajo Committee and refer this back there. And have a great day. Thank you again, and I'll turn the floor back over to you, Madam Pro Tem Speaker.
Thank you for that, Speaker Damon. So with that, committee members, the recommendation by the sponsor is to refer the legislation back to Navajo. I do hear a motion by Vice Chair Otto So. Can I get a second? I second Delegate
Yellow hair.
Okay. Committee members, I do apologize. I skipped a step here. Bear with me on this. I was supposed to announce who we have on the lineup, and based on the lineup, the time that is remaining. So we have Honorable Raymond Smith with 2 minutes and 54 seconds. Honorable Carl Slater with 4 minutes and 39 seconds. Honorable Edmund Yazzie with 4 minutes and 8 seconds. Honorable Amber Kenneth-Bakrati with 3 minutes and 51 seconds. Chair Daniel So with 2 minutes and 21 seconds. Honorable Kealan Begay with 16 seconds. Delegate Elmer Begay has no time left. Delegate Eugene So, I believe still has 5 minutes on the clock. And Honorable Wilson Stewart has 3 minutes and 47 seconds. So with that, that is the lineup and the time remaining. So we do have a new person in the queue. Delegate Otto So. Delegate Otto So, I will go ahead and recognize you at this time.
Thank you very much, members of the council and members of the and then sponsor speaker. I don't know. I didn't know. Donda ata shinsago atibayati ho distingue ho a conde distingue ya din le de con ni trako da his aj nebeke bakage ya linigi a otahne asaho ati nan let the execution lini to badada il kar nan let in le de beshi con science to badada kar Ako adistig tana khait atot asiego yalbe atot liki atot ni hitate nat atalle from the administration to replenish these resources that we lost from the closure of the mine. Kahashi nashi da ikha kechin lini biketa inot kande Yegon hiknasil. Ako di khaleit ego la ni gebel nil tego khaat Adon da di de ko abo honet zani ego shikbo honet za. Nsin. Don da khala ya nase be desti. Akonde kodona an kindot arolat ati benan kindo at ege. Aron the in the ati to lead at the local level ad yadati. Ako epe go kodo epe snaki ya. I'm going to refer this legislation back to Nabik committee for further discussion. A ad with no time frame and time limit. And I reserve my time.
Vice Chair Otto So, your reserve time is at 2 minutes and 27 seconds. Committee members, there is a motion that has been put on the floor, the motion to refer this legislation 0232-21 back to Nabik for further discussion. Can I get a second?
Second, Winika.
Second by Honorable Addison Winika. There is no debate on this motion to refer back to Nabik. So Ms. Nota, can you assist us with the roll call vote, please?
Honorable Elmer Begay.
I vote green.
Honorable Elmer Begay votes green. Honorable Kate Allen Begay Jr.
Kealan votes green. Thank you.
Honorable Kate Allen Begay Jr. votes green. Honorable Paul Begay.
Delegate Paul Begay votes green.
Honorable Paul Begay votes green. Honorable Nathaniel Brown.
Delegate Brown votes green.
Honorable Nathaniel Brown votes green. Honorable Amber Canesba Crotty.
Shada, this is Delegate Crotty. I'll vote green. Thank you.
Honorable Amber Canesba Crotty votes green. Honorable Speaker Seth Damon.
Green.
Honorable Speaker Seth Damon votes green. Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr.
Green.
Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr. votes green. Honorable Mark Freeland.
Green.
Honorable Mark Freeland votes green. Honorable Pernell Halona. Honorable Pernell Halona votes green. Honorable Jamie Henyo.
Henyo votes green.
Honorable Jamie Henyo votes green. Honorable Vince James. Honorable Vince James. Honorable Vince James did not vote. Honorable Rick Nez.
Delegate Rick Nez votes green.
Honorable Rick Nez votes green. Honorable Carl Slater.
Green.
Honorable Carl Slater votes green. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr.
Green.
Honorable Raymond Smith Jr. votes green. Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr. Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr.
Green.
Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr. votes green. Honorable Otto So. Honorable Otto So votes green. Honorable Charlene So.
I vote green.
Honorable Charlene So votes green. Honorable Daniel So. Honorable Daniel So votes green. Honorable Eugene So.
Vote Dr. Dr.
Honorable Eugene So votes green. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr.
Thomas Walker votes green.
Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. votes green. Honorable Edison Winika. Honorable Edison Winika votes green. Honorable Edmund Yazzie.
Green.
Honorable Edmund Yazzie votes green. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair.
Delegate Yellowhair votes green.
Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair votes green. Going back up. Honorable Vince James. Honorable Vince James. Honorable Vince James did not vote. Speaker Pro Temp with a vote of 22 in favor, 0 opposed. Speaker Pro Temp not voting.
Thank you for that, Ms. Nota. With the vote of 22 in favor, this motion does pass. So this legislation will be referred back to Nabikiatskit for further discussions. And with that, we'll go ahead and proceed forward to the next item on the agenda under old business. We do have legislation 0002-22. Speaker Damon, I'm going to go ahead and give you back the gavel. I won't throw it at you. I'll give it back to you.
Thank you very much, and thank you again, Madam Pro Tem Speaker, for assisting there on the last legislation. That, colleagues, as we are continuing down on our agenda, let's go ahead and go to item number 10, old business B. This legislation 002-22 does have a motion, does have a second. Sponsor is by Honorable Edison Eugene So. Co-sponsor is Honorable Keon Begay Jr. Co-sponsors Madam Chair Charles Newton. Co-sponsors Vice Chair Smith. With that, Mr. Rico, because this was a colleagues, legislation 002-22 was tabled on 1/27 2022. And with that, I'm going to need a motion to take this legislation off the table. Is there a motion? Motion by Honorable Edison Wanika. Second by
Charles
Madam
Newton.
Chair Charles Newton to take it off the table. That, colleagues, let's go to the board to take it off the table. Legislation 00, come on, Chairman. 0002-22.
Honorable Elmer Begay. Honorable Elmer Begay. Honorable Elmer Begay votes green. Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr.
Delegate Key Allen votes green. Thank you.
Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr. votes green. Honorable Paul Begay.
Delegate Paul Begay votes green.
Honorable Paul Begay votes green. Honorable Nathaniel Brown.
I vote green.
Honorable Nathaniel Brown votes green. Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton.
Charles Newton votes green.
Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton votes green. Honorable Amber Canesba Crotty. Honorable Amber Canesba Crotty votes green. Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr.
Green.
Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr. votes green. Honorable Mark Freeland. Honorable Mark Freeland. Honorable Mark Freeland did not vote. Honorable Pernell Halona. Honorable Pernell Halona votes green. Honorable Jamie Henyo.
Freeland votes green, sorry.
Honorable Jamie Henyo. Honorable Jamie Henyo did not vote. Honorable Mark Freeland votes green. Honorable Vince James. Honorable Vince James. Honorable Vince James did not vote. Honorable Rick Nez.
Delegate Rick Nez votes green.
Honorable Rick Nez votes green. Honorable Carl Slater.
Delegate Slater, green.
Honorable Carl Slater votes green. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr.
Green.
Honorable Raymond Smith Jr. votes green. Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr.
Green.
Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr. votes green. Honorable Otto So. Honorable Otto So votes green. Honorable Charlene So.
I vote green.
Honorable Charlene So votes green. Honorable Daniel So. Honorable Daniel So votes green. Honorable Eugene So. Honorable Eugene So. Honorable Eugene So votes green. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr.
Thomas Walker votes green.
Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. votes green. Honorable Edison Winika. Honorable Edison Winika votes green. Honorable Edmund Yazi.
Green.
Honorable Edmund Yazi votes green. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair.
Delegate Yellowhair votes green.
Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair votes green. Going back up. Honorable Jamie Henyo. Honorable Jamie Henyo.
Henyo votes green.
Honorable Jamie Henyo votes green. Honorable Vince James. Honorable Vince James. Honorable Vince James did not vote. Speaker, with a vote of 22 in favor, 0 opposed, and Speaker not voting.
Thank you very much with that, colleagues. 22 in favor, 0 opposed. Speaker not voting, motion carries to take legislation 02-22 off the table. So this is, we'll go ahead and go to Mr. Rico on a recap. Then I'll go to Honorable Eugene So for 3 minutes of his recap on the legislation itself. And then we'll go ahead and go to the floor. With that, Mr. Rico.
Thank you, Speaker. Members of the 24th Navajo Nation Council, tracking number 0002-22, in action relating to research and development, health, education, human services, the law and order, and the Navajo committees and Navajo Nation Council, amending Title 17 of the Navajo Nation Code to establish criminal penalties for vicious dog and other animal attacks. Legislation is sponsored by Honorable Eugene So, co-sponsored by Honorable Kealan Begay Jr., co-sponsored by Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton, co-sponsored by Honorable Raymond Smith Jr. You do have committee, 4 committee reports. There is a committee report from the Research and Development Committee that recommend a do pass with no amendments, but one recommendation. The Research and Development Committee recommends that the Navajo Nation Council schedule a work session on legislation 0002-21. The Navajo Nation programs that should be invited to attend the work session include, but are not limited to, the Prosecutor's Office Fish and Wildlife Animal Control Program, Navajo Veterinarian Program, Office of the Controller, Office of Management and Budget, Department of Agriculture, Navajo Division of Public Safety, and Navajo Housing Authority. Purpose of the work session include review of legislation 0002-22, identifying funding to increase the animal control staff and to provide more funding to that staff, provide suggestions as to the limit of the number of dogs and cats a household may possess, provide suggestions on how to establish more spay and neuter clinics, provide suggestions on how to educate Navajo residents to care for their dogs and cats, and other topics to address this issue of dogs and injuring the Navajo population. There is a committee report from the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee that recommend a do pass with no amendment. There is a committee report from the Law and Order Committee that recommend a do pass with no amendment. There is a committee report from the Navajo Committee that recommend a do pass and no amendment. There is an action report by the council. The legislation was tabled on January 27, 2022. There was a motion by Honorable Madam Chair Eugenia Charles Newton, second by Honorable Elmer P. Begay, with a vote of 14 in favor, 9 opposed, Speaker Damon not voting. Legislation was tabled and to bring back no later than the Navajo Nation Council spring session to hold a LOC and RDC joint work session and include the Prosecutor's Office, Public Safety, Animal Control Program, Fish and Wildlife divisions, and other programs and departments provided in the RDC committee report attached to the legislation for possible recommendations and amendments. There is a memo that I sent out this morning dated April 14th, 2022. It is signed by Madam Chair Charles Newton and Chairman Ricky Nez. The subject is titled Joint Work Session on Navajo Nation Council, Table Legislation 0002-22. This legislation will move on to the Office of the President or Vice President for approval. Per Navajo Nation Council Rules of Order, Rule 9, legislation has been read into the record by electronic voice recording. Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much for that update on legislation 0002-22, Mr. Rico. So with that, let me go ahead and go to Honorable Eugene. So you have 3 minutes on the recap of the legislation itself.
I hope my agent is on the air to Prosecutor Vernon Jackson. Kikoni Tasas Kalvide has Ani, which condition had a Yabanani, the Halobina. But I don't know to talk, no Echadeliado, but I became the Yetapen and the Soliciata, that's no creation for Yada, so we the Christian Warrior. And they title 17 Law and Order, don't worship Christian Yada, so AP is not so all the Yata, the next Kodo in his what battle, I think a critical cosmos from Ecuador. We should have state or so share it is needed. Along that all us and it is needed. All the is not target are it all for non nationality, quite other. There's only not cars or quite other yard out from all. They never have sent a card deal with corn or he is up in the 现在的是最强听到是讲到是这个ko eben na ko edi koroni so si ye ko e saban dos do sana se ko na so na President Naz which edi ko ya be hasido ke han kidini. I don't know if my age has anything on Vernon Jackson. Thank you.
Speaker.
Thank you very much for that recap, Honorable Eugene. So that, colleagues, before we go back to the floor, again, this legislation passed Nabi by 17 in favor, 0 opposed. To the lineup, I do have Chairman Daniel So on reserve time with 4 minutes and 5 seconds. Madam Chair Charles Newton, 3 minutes and 42 seconds. And that is it. There's nobody else in the queue at that time. So with that, I'll go ahead and go to the floor. Are there any comments, questions on this legislation? If not, let me go back to reserve time. Chairman Daniel So, 4 minutes and 5 seconds on reserve time.
Thank you, Cecilia. Basically, let me ask a question. So it's off the table. We have a main motion and a second to adopt. Basically, I really feel like the necessary steps to get this adopted. My question is, have all the parameters been met to bring it back to the table for adoption? Reserve my time.
That reserve your time with 3 minutes. Chairman Daniel So, 3 minutes and 29 seconds. So with that, let me go to Mr. Rico to explain the answer your question, Chairman Daniel So.
Thank you, Speaker. Members of the 24th Navajo Nation Council. The tabling motion did request that a joint work session happen between the Law and Order Committee and the Resource Development Committee. That joint work session happened on April 12th, 2022 at Twin Arrows Casino Resort. Let me just read the memorandum here that was provided by Madam Chair Charles Newton and also Chairman Ricky Nez. This memorandum serves to inform the 24th Navajo Nation Council that the Law and Order Committee and Resource Development Committee conducted a joint work session on table legislation 0002-22 at Twin Arrows Casino Resort on Tuesday, April 12, 2022 at 9 a.m. The following divisions, departments, and programs were on the call and or attended in the work session in person. The Department of Fish and Wildlife, Animal Control Program, Navajo Veterinarian Program, Prosecutor's Office, Office of the Controller, Department of Agriculture, Division of Public Safety, and Navajo Housing Authority. During the work session, 6 recommendations were provided. 1, increase funding for the officers. 2, change Title 17 Criminal Code and Title 13 Animal Code. 3, limit the number of dogs and cats to 2 per household. 4, offer proper education to Navajo people. 5, include animal cruelty to Title 17 and Title 13. And both be considered civil and criminal acts. And 6, all dogs and cats must be neutered and spayed on the Navajo Nation. These recommendations were provided at the joint work session, and the committees agreed to place legislation 0002-22 back on the agenda for the Navajo Nation Council spring session. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact us by email or telephone. Thank you. And that memo was provided, Speaker Damon, to show that the work session and the requirements for tabling were addressed.
Thank you very much for that information and that update, Mr. Rico. With that, colleagues, let me continue on down on reserve time. Madam Chair, Charles Newman, on reserve time, 3 minutes and 42 seconds.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you, colleagues. I will say, and I will advocate that this legislation does need to pass. We did make recommendations, and a delegate has the opportunity to amend this legislation to include the recommendations that were provided per the reading from Mr. Rico. On April 12, 2022 at 9:00 a.m., RDC and Law and Order Committee did meet at 20 Arrows Navajo Casino Resort. At that time, we did have many of the parties who are important to this legislation. They were in attendance. All did agree that this legislation should pass. They also, speaking freely, all of us did provide recommendations, and some of those recommendations will affect the budget because funding does need to be increased to hire more officers. Per the information that was given to us at that time, there is funding that was made available to animal control to hire new staff members, and they did hire 3 new staff members who did receive training or who are in the process of getting training. The problem is the funding that was extended to them ends in September. And there's still 4 new positions that have to be funded. So what animal control did request was to extend that amount, the $526,000 that was given to them to help fund these positions. Because right now we have the animal control that are still in training, and by the time they come out of training, the funding will end in September. They also informed us that they were working on a 10-year strategic planning, and that was happening at the same time that we were meeting there at Twin Arrows, and it was happening right next door. So they are creating a 10-year strategic plan. Some of the issues that they did speak about was that some of the buildings for animal control were built in the 1950s by the BIA. And right now, on average, animal control gets 12,000 to 30,000 dogs taken to the shelter every year. And it's very difficult for animal control when they can't find foster homes to make that decision of euthanizing these dogs because they cannot, and they can't keep the dogs there, nor do they have the budget to do so. So animal control did request that they keep the $526,000 in addition to the base budget that they're receiving. So they did talk about that. Acting Chief Prosecutor Vernon Jackson was also on the call, and he did talk about the animal attacks that do happen, and then the process and the way that prosecutor's office, animal control, also Division of Public Safety, how they all work together in ensuring that these issues do get addressed. There were also concerns that were brought about response of animal bites on livestock, and that's also cases that are sent to animal control. We also talked about the no bite versus one bite controversy, and what that means is there are some states that say that if a dog bites for the first time, they must be euthanized, and if a dog bites, I'm sorry, I ran out of time. If somebody could give me some more time, I could explain a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you very much with that, I'm sure. That, colleagues, back to the floor.
Speaker,
Honorable, yes.
could you put me in the queue, please? Thank you.
All right, with that, I'm gonna go to Honorable Otto So, then Honorable Paul Begay, and then Honorable Chairman Yazzie. Honorable Otto So.
Thank you very much, Speaker, members of the Navajo Nation Council. Dida has anigit ani nlide nasi do nas adi dashin sago iya etna do kanat ani that no piso yan ya do kito yani yaltido lishne. The work session happened between the two standing committees who have oversight of each of the programs, such as animal control, RDC, and then with Title 17, with the amendment of the law, it's to a law and order committee. Any amendment to Title 17 requires that our LOC to be involved. Dashin sagot na ya ade tahod na to nhui ahito dashin sagot so ya nihi hanne ete la do ti ado az az ich in ado la na tloshian liniki ede so ade nihi ed ado la ishan la do yan yaltito aje so animal control officers. That is the champ is la zulia. Willa. Alcohol ya so han bichia dasil kito the aje hashin sago so behas ani so yan yada kit alcohol kade ya piara esto behas ani ke ashon kat Title 17, not so is so aniki be gun so the is zohiki kunna ya benache ya the na beliniki belechan liniki de mosita hat in a ship arola halit that the hashita heda that the net tigi la but has ani ya hollo. This is the first step to move forth with policy relating to this issue. And I would like to just indicate that I would like to move forward with this legislation. That the AI that the consonant Eugene so there has any Kodohidi la ye nat ya Hunza Holjish. Lady the net ashin so it's aro you get hit a hon you get hit a hot za. Tabagan das stain to tabagan yego yinada das the open das the in cardi a bag or ya did that is string ya. Dinsen, Bebas Ani Hoshli Hala Yat Nan Lini Lady Belechan Lini Hajoya Hadiadoli Hajota his odoli Hajoya na katoli Benina Shnini then Nigo go Kitchan then Nigo go Naga go Ahot Abe Buji Koko Bahas Tit Action that what Passion big a hajo, ito none that the Yajastio. What ego Yastio Yandita. It's a monkey see, monkey do thing. A peg or a yape national Nadison. Go she or here the addition and Honorable Eugene Saul bringing this amendment to Title 17. We are piecemealing Title 17 at this time. And APEC go Halate go what up on this case. I don't have Kodoshan and at O Kodope, I can't the Kato, Nahat Ahikinas at the Nito the Nay Yisipati Behas Ani, APA to protect the Navajo people. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you with that. Moving on down, Honorable Paul Begay.
Thank you, Speaker, colleagues on the 24th Navajo Nation Council. The Shanale, Honorable Delegate Eugene So, Sabi Dano de Yin So Sigi. Here, the Diva Hinson, the Hitchan, Mingido, Nal Gloshida, so, but Holoniki ADT, the Haitego Ea, Nil Indole, Haitego Bazani, Ilne, Nidole, I appreciate the Law and Order Committee working on this also. Jungo Ea, Ben Hikanende, just Honorable Chair Charles Newton. Ishin Hajon Hisnao, Don Koti, time it's the Higi Ajabat Atole, Madam Chair Charles Newton. Yeah.
That. Madam Chair, Charles, Newton, accept 4 minutes.
Yes, I do, Speaker.
Okay, floor is yours.
Thank you. Honorable Paul B. Gay, thank you for giving me your time. Again, on April 12th, when we met, some of the issues that were brought up is the fact, that there's not enough funding at this time to be able to help assist with the number of dogs that animal control is being called upon, and with the number of officers that they currently have in place. At this point, it was shared with us that currently the way that the law is written, they did hold one dog at the kennel for 2 years until they received a court order to euthanize the dog. Most times when there is a bite that does occur, then the animal control can hold the dog for up to 48 hours before they are euthanized. But even then, it's always a question of whether they should be euthanizing or trying to find a home for these dogs. Because there are laws in other states that say that, if a dog bites for the first time, that the dog needs to be euthanized. It makes it very difficult for Navajo Nation to find foster homes off the Navajo Nation to rehome these dogs. There were also questions about dogs being used as weapons. There was a report that was provided just 2 days prior to us meeting where an officer was attacked by dogs that were sigged upon him by the owner because the owner was trying to avoid being captured and being arrested. So at this point, we did learn that animal control is limited to how they can act and the way that they respond because of the laws that are written in Title 13. Title 13 is not a criminal code, it is a civil code. So that means that two private individuals can bring suits against each other. If we do include laws regarding animals, vicious dog attack in Title 17, it will make it a law, and the Navajo Nation can bring it to court on behalf of the Navajo Nation. They can prosecute the cases. In addition to that, there were also questions about whether we should lower the number of dogs and cats that people are allowed to have. Per the animal control laws, they do have a red book. It's called the Navajo Nation Animal Control Laws. Within the laws, it does state that there is a certain number of animals. On the first page, it says that there can only be 4 dogs per household and 4 cats per household, and that the animal owners under a lease agreement within housing sites will abide by the number of dogs and or cats allowed per household. That was the reason why we did have NHA part of the conversation, because at this point you can have 4 dogs and you can have 4 cats. The recommendation is to lower that number to 2. So you could have 2 dogs, or you could have 2 cats, or you could have 1 dog and one cat. In addition to that, there was also the recommendation made that all dogs and cats be neutered across the Navajo Nation. So we also had the Navajo Nation veterinarian who did come on, Dr. Upshaw, and she did talk about the surrender program and her in-clinic adoption, and how the shelters continue to get full with a limited budget that she has. So at this point, the Law and Order Committee and the Resources and Development Committee, we had the opportunity to sit down with the divisions and departments that we oversee, and we made the recommendations that were provided or that were read into the record by Mr. Rico. So with that, committee members, colleagues, I ask you to vote green for this legislation. And if there are any amendments that you wish to make, that you make those amendments based on the recommendations that have been provided. Thank you, Speaker Damon.
Thank you very much for that, the time out on that. So let me go ahead and move on down, colleagues. So I don't think there's any questions hit to Honorable Chairman Yazzie. Floor is yours.
Yes, Speaker, thank you, members of the council, everyone that's at the chambers, and then everyone that's listening on the legislation, Mr. Sol, which I do approve and will vote in favor of the bill because it's much needed. Gets pretty frustrating when individuals drop off puppies and dogs along the roads, and then also with cats. And so, but we wish we could all be responsible as pet owners, but it's pretty sensitive when people do this. Speaker, I don't know if this, because of the seriousness of the bill and the animal control, the last council approved budget to start construction at the Crown Point area, and it was sponsored by Jonathan Hale, and it went through the council. And so to this day, which is almost 4 years, we haven't seen anything. And so if it's possible, maybe just do a directive to the staff. I know they have a lot to do, the animal control department, to find out where and when the construction is going to start up at the Crown Point area for the animal control department. And so we need to get that up and going. I believe it was $3 million that Jonathan Hale sponsored to get the building set up in Crown Point, which will benefit the Eastern Agency. So, I have asked the department before, so maybe a directive will help to get that going. Not an amendment, but just a directive. Speaker, sir, reserve the rest of my time.
Thank you very much. That reserve your time at 2 minutes and 58 seconds. Chairman, we can work together on that directive with the staff and then get that going.
Okay, Speaker. Thank you, sir.
Right. Colleagues, it seems like there's no questions. Might be a unanimous vote just on legislation 0002-22. Oh, Chairman Nez, you are in the queue. Sorry, I didn't see that. Chairman, floor is yours.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker Damon, honorable members of the 24th Council. Speaker, I believe that it's time that we just vote on this law, the recommendations that was made by RDC as well as LOC. And I do appreciate Honorable Eugene So for this legislation that he's sponsoring. Thank you, Speaker.
Vote. I do have Chairman Daniel So for the reserve time, and Honorable Lona wants to speak. Are we ready to vote? You want to talk? Oh, we want to speak. So Honorable Pernell Lona, floor is yours.
There you go. Thank you, Speaker and members of the 24th Navajo Council. This is a real serious issue that we're dealing with here. I'm surprised to hear that there was that $3 million that was allocated several years ago. Seems like we do these motions and we allocate these funds, and we don't have anybody to follow through and carry through with the responsibilities of handling it. I do understand that we don't have enough staff here to follow through, especially in take care of the animal problem. I do believe that some of these issues that we're having is directly going to be talking straight to the people ourselves, that we need their help. We can allocate money and funds and make laws, but it's not going to change anything. Something needs to be done to really get out there and advocate, to tell the people, notify the people. What if it's going to be your child? What if it's your grandmother that's going to be the next victim? And that's a scary thought to have. Also, with the problem that we also have with the sheep that we had out there, the sheepdogs are out there, and so they're not sprayed or neutered. And so maybe that needs to be one area that we need to concentrate on with the agriculture department, who approve all these grazing permits. And something maybe needs to be tied into the grazing permit, that their animals need to be sprayed and neutered if they're going to have animals for sheepdogs.
Okay.
And because there's a lot of sheepdogs out there that are not sprayed and neutered, and most families have more than 2 dogs to take care of their sheep. So it's a real big problem that we really need to get the public's awareness about this. And of course, like I said, it could be your family member. And
nope.
I don't know how any other way to express it, but that's really, 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 really sad that we have to carry on the way we are now. And but I think it needs to be tied to the grazing permit for some of those people, and allocate funding to spray and neuter the animals. I was talking to some of the family members that maybe that might be a way to knock down some of the population. If we would allocate $200,000 or $300,000 just to spray and neuter every animal that we can get, and that might help curb the population for a time being, but it's not going to cure the situation. It's going to have to be a blitz, information blitz to the public, and it's going to have to be really out there where we're going to have to tell them that it could be you, it could be your child, it could be your grandmother, your wife, your mother, and it's a real serious problem. And the only way I can think of it is to knock down the population, is to allocate a large amount of funds to spray and neuter all the animals that we have, and as well as to legalize the destruction of the animals. You know, I understand there was a dog attack where the dog spent 2 years in a cage. And then he was put to death because he had bit somebody, and that's not good either. We're talking about animal abuse in a different degree. And but if you go out and you have wild dogs and nobody's claiming them, then they should be euthanized, and the public should be able to do that. The police officers should be able to do that. They all need to join in, as well as the animal control. And in order to curb this situation, I really doubt that we're going to nail it all the way, but it's a start that we need to get moving forward with. So with that, Speaker, I reserve my time. Thank you.
Reserve your time at 28 seconds. That colleagues, no comment. Are there all comments, no questions? Everybody else in the queue? Before I go back to reserve time.
Delegate Yella here, Speaker.
What's your? Seems like everybody's in consensus. Yellow hair. Floor is yours.
Oh, yeah, there. Yeah, Speaker. Speaker Damon. That is all the let's have on it any father meaning it out of your short had no by you. I think you forgot about one of the most dangerous dogs that we have on the reservation is the pit bull. Pit bulls want to attack you, will tear you up, tear your muscles. One of the most dangerous dogs. You forgot to put this in. I would like to make my motion to put the pit bull should be the one banned. I started about the idea on this case. Dog is a dog, but the pit bulls are dangerous. When it can't back up, wants to attack you. I was lucky they almost attacked by pit bull. One of my young nieces had to call that dog and almost grabbed my calf muscle. But I tear up all my muscles right there. Pit bull should also be the one that should be taken out first all the time. The main pit bulls, they're among here in Navajo Nation. Remember that was the pit bull killed one of the little boy somewhere in the grave between Indian Wells somewhere. The pit bull's dangerous. I'd like to save my remaining time. 다시 회담한 소켓에다. One thoroughly. Yeah, got to save my time. Thank you, Speaker.
That 3 minutes and 31 seconds. There's our time. Any other comments, questions, colleagues? Again, seems like there's no opposition. Are we ready to vote? Go back to reserve time. Chairman Daniel So, 3 minutes and 29 seconds.
Speaker Damon, Otto, Cement, legislative staff, and the folks on the call. Colleagues, let's be careful. Or comments. Don't wish these things on our people. What if it happened to you? Let's just, I think we're in unison that this particular amendment to Title 17 needs to occur. Let's keep the discussion on that aspect and what it would. It's talking about imposing the statutory, the regulatory, and the penalties. And let's keep it at that and not the other aspects. You think you're trying to convince other colleagues by saying that, but you're not. And so let's be careful on how we project ourselves or how we project our voice. And with that, Speaker, I waive the rest of the time. Can I motion to cease debate?
Motion to cease debate by Chairman Daniel So. Before I motion to cease debate, let me just see if I have three of our colleagues with time, if they would waive that off, so we don't have to go through the motion of there, but let's see. Honorable Chairman Yazzie, are you willing to waive your time?
Speaker, yeah, but I wanted to, and council and sponsor wanted to have that directive made on the construction for the animal department in Crown Point, sir.
Chairman, I said that I stated the staff is working on that, and when they have that directive ready, you can make that directive at any time, and that would need a separate motion.
All right, then I waive my time, sir.
Okay. Honorable Helena, 28 seconds. Willing to waive that off? Honorable Yellow Hair, willing to waive that off? 3 minutes, 31 seconds.
Yes, sir. Speaker,
All right.
I'd like to waive my time. Yes.
That, colleagues, any other comments, questions?
Speaker, this is Vice Chair Smith, put me in the queue.
That, Vice Chair Smith's in the queue. Chairman Daniel So, I'm going to recognize your motion to cease debate due to the fact that it's all one-sided. Chairman Daniel So, second by Honorable Paul Begay. That on the cease debate? Go to board. Motion is by Chairman Daniel So, second by Honorable Paul Begay on the main motion.
Mr. Speaker, this is Lorraine Tapahi with Office of Legislative Counsel. May I chime in?
Hold on, there's a technicality. This Tapahi, the amendment from earlier was going to be explained. I have Mr. Rico, who is going to explain that right now. And then Mr. Tapahi, I don't know if you want to add on to that.
That's what I was going to mention, Mr. Speaker. So I think Manuel Rico
Thank you,
can take.
Speaker.
Okay.
We're good to go. That amendment will carry over as I believe our communication, I was talking about a different legislation. So this amendment one from council back in January 27th will carry forward. We're good to go.
All right. All right. That colleagues, we're still on the cease debate motion. Sota.
Honorable Elmer Begay. Honorable Elmer Begay. Honorable Elmer Begay did not vote.
Green? How about
Honorable
green?
Elmer Begay votes green. Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr. Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr. Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr. did not vote. Honorable Paul Begay.
Delegate Paul Begay votes green.
Honorable Paul Begay votes green. Honorable
Delegate
Nathaniel
Kell votes
Brown.
green.
Honorable Nathaniel Brown. Honorable Nathaniel Brown. Honorable Nathaniel Brown did not vote. Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr. votes green. Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton. Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton votes green. Honorable Amber Canesba Crotty. Honorable Amber Canesba Crotty. Honorable Amber Canesba Crotty votes red. Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr. Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr. Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr. did not vote. Honorable Mark Freeland.
Green.
Honorable Mark Freeland votes green. Honorable Pernell Halona. Honorable Pernell Halona votes green. Honorable Jamie Henyo. Honorable Jamie Henyo.
It was green.
Honorable Jamie Henyo votes green. Honorable Vince James.
Delegate James votes red.
Honorable Vince James votes red. Honorable Rick Nez.
Delegate Rick Nez votes green.
Honorable Rick Nez votes green. Honorable Carl Slater.
Delegate Slater, green.
Honorable Carl Slater votes green. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr.
Green?
Honorable Raymond Smith Jr. votes green. Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr.
Green.
Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr. votes green. Honorable Otto So. Honorable Otto So votes green. Honorable Charlene So.
I vote green.
Honorable Charlene So votes green. Honorable Daniel So.
I vote green.
Honorable Daniel So votes green. Honorable Eugene So.
No, it is all Shehu.
Honorable Eugene So votes green. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. did not vote. Honorable Edison Winika. Honorable Edison Winika votes green.
Thomas Walker votes green.
Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. votes green. Honorable Edmund Yazzie.
Green.
Honorable Edmund Yazzie votes green. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair.
Delegate Yellowhair votes green.
Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair votes green. Going back up. Honorable Nathaniel Brown.
Delegate Brown votes green.
Honorable Nathaniel Brown votes green. Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr. Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr.
Green.
Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr. votes green. Speaker, with a vote of 21 in favor, 2 opposed, and Speaker not voting.
That, colleagues, 21 in favor, 2 opposed. Speaker not voting on the motion to cease debate. Carries. That. Moving on. Legislation 0002-22 on the main motion. Mr. Rico, second reading, then we'll go to the board to vote on the main motion.
Thank you, Speaker. Members of the 24th Nomination Council, you did have one amendment on January 27th, 2022 council. Amendment number 1 on page 4, line 23, after the word underline semicolon vicious dogs, end of underscore. 2 on page 6 at line 28, between the words provisions and herein insert new underlined text underscore in section 486B 7, 8, and 9, end of new language. 3, renumber letters succeeding paragraphs, sections, and exhibits as necessary and appropriate. The Nomination Council hereby authorize the Office of Legislative Services and the Office of Legislative Counsel to correct technical errors consistent with the Council's intent in improving this amendment. This amendment precedes all inconsistent language in any other council amendment. Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. With that, Mr. Rico has read that second reading into the record. So let's go ahead and go to the board, colleagues, on the main motion of legislation 0002-22 with amendment? With one amendment. Yes.
Honorable Elmer Begay. Honorable Elmer Begay. Honorable Elmer Begay did not vote.
I vote green.
Honorable Elmer Begay votes green. Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr.
Delegate Caleb Gay Jr. votes green. Thank you.
Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr. votes green. Honorable Paul Begay.
Delegate Paul Begay votes green.
Honorable Paul Begay votes green. Honorable Nathaniel Brown.
Delegate Brown votes green.
Honorable Nathaniel Brown votes green. Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton. Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton votes green. Honorable Amber Canesba Crotty. Honorable Amber Canesba Crotty. Honorable Amber Canes-Bakati did not vote. Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr. Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr. Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr. did not vote. Honorable Mark Freeland.
Green.
Honorable Mark Freeland votes green. Honorable Pernell Halona. Honorable Pernell Halona votes green. Honorable Jamie Henyo. Honorable Jamie Henyo. Honorable Jamie Henyo did not vote. Honorable Vince James.
Delegate James votes green.
Honorable Vince James votes green. Honorable Rick Nez.
Delegate Rick Nez votes green.
Honorable Rick Nez votes green. Honorable Carl Slater.
Delegate Slater, green.
Honorable Carl Slater votes green. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr.
Green.
Honorable Raymond Smith Jr. votes green. Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr.
Green.
Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr. votes green. Honorable Odo So.
I vote green.
Honorable Odo So votes green. Honorable Charlene So.
I vote green.
Honorable Charlene So votes green. Honorable Daniel So.
Excuse me, I vote green.
Honorable Daniel So votes green. Honorable Eugene So.
Oh, shit, so it is.
Honorable Eugene So votes green. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr.
Thomas Walker votes green.
Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. votes green. Honorable Edison Winika. Honorable Edison Winika votes green. Honorable Edmund Yazzie.
Green.
Honorable Edmund Yazzie votes green. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair.
Delegate Yellowhair votes green.
Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair votes green. Going back up. Honorable Amber Canes-Bakati. Honorable Amber Canes-Bakati votes green via text. Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr. Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr. Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr. did not vote. Honorable Jamie Henyo.
He votes green.
Honorable Jamie Henyo votes green. Speaker, with a vote of 22 in favor, 0 opposed, the speaker not voting.
Mr. Speaker, this is Daniel. I vote green. I vote green.
Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr. votes green. 22 in favor, 0 opposed, and speaker not voting.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nota. On legislation 0002-22, sponsored by Honorable Gene So, 22 in favor, 0 opposed, and 23, sorry. 23 in favor, 0 opposed, and speaker not voting. Motion carries. Colleagues, that goes across the street to the president for final signature. Moving on down, colleagues, we are now have concluded with our old business. We are moving into item number 11, new business. And under new business, we have A through N. Nope. Madam Chair, Charles Newton?
Speaker Damon, this is Delegate Charles Newton.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Speaker, can I get some guidance on this? I'd like to I believe it's suspend the floor rules at this time since we did adopt the agenda. And at this time, offer to do a motion for a consent agenda, Speaker.
Yes, Madam Chair, we did approve the agenda, and at the time when we approved the agenda yesterday, it was a simple majority to approve the agenda per the council rules of order. Now that we have approved the agenda, you're able to either suspend the floor rules or, in this case, create a consent agenda item. And that's what we're going to do. So we're just going to amend the agenda in this case, if you're wanting to add a consent agenda item to the floor or to the agenda. So whatever items you want to add onto a consent agenda, that can be done at this time. But you would take, but it would take 16 votes.
Thank you, Speaker. Colleagues, I would like to offer or to motion for a consent agenda. The legislations that I will be asking for the consent agenda, there have been really no opposition. And we did have a debate at Nabikiaska, and that's for item E, legislation 0045-22. Item F, legislation 0048-22. Item J, legislation 0011-22. Item L, legislation 0025-22. And legislation, or M, legislation 0032-22. That is the motion that I'd like to make at this time, colleagues, for a consent agenda. Thank you, Speaker and colleagues.
Thank you very
Second, Delegate James.
the consent agenda items is asking for two legislations that are 2/3 majority. With that, the 2/3 majority, and then we have three legislations that are just simple majority. In order for those 2/3 majorities, you have to have 16 votes regardless in order for this to go ahead and move forward on E, F, J, L, and M. That motion, if this is passed, colleagues, this consent agenda item, if we remember, we had to complete all 2/3 items first before we go into simple majority legislations. So this consent agenda item will actually go in and fall under as new F. After G would move up to E, which is legislation 0050-22. So with that, colleagues, there's a motion, item number legislation 0045-22, legislation 0048-22, legislation 0011-22, and legislation 0025-22, and legislation 0023-22. Motions by Madam Chair Charles Newton for the consent agenda item. And
Second, Delegate James.
second is by Honorable Vince James. That, colleagues, any comments, questions on?
Speaker.
Speaker,
Yeah.
this is Edmund.
Okay, Chairman Yazzie, then Honorable Eugene So, and then Honorable Keon Begay.
Speaker, members of the council, everyone that's listening. On the amendment, could I ask the amending party if we can add 0013-22 as well under the consent?
Now, 00.
Okay.
With that, there's a motion. Honorable Madam Chair, Charles Newton to add on, to modify your amendment to add on legislation 0013-22 sponsored by Honorable Helena. Madam Chair, Charles Newton.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you, Delegate Yazzie, for asking that we do add this legislation. At this time, because this legislation was voted red, a majority of the delegates voted red at Nabikia on this legislation, I will not include that on the consent agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Delegate
Chair. With that, moving on down, Honorable Eugene So.
Okay.
Yes.
Did we just vote on the 0232 to go back to another committee? That's my question. That's the only question. Thank you.
Honorable Eugene So, your legislation 0002-22 passed. It's going to the president's desk now.
I mean, 232. Did we just move it back to another? Yes, thank you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yes, you are correct. That, moving on down, Honorable Keon Begay, on the consent agenda motion.
Speaker, can you give out the letter again, which legislation for clarification?
Item number E, legislation 0045-22, sponsored by Vice Chair Walker. Legislation F. This is currently I'm reading it off the current agenda, approved agenda. F, legislation 0048-22, sponsored by Honorable Vice Chair Slater. Item number J, legislation 0011-22, sponsored by Chairman Daniel So. Legislation L 0025-22, sponsored by Madam Chair Charles Newton. Legislation 0032-22, sponsored by Honorable Stewart. Those are the legislations. That, moving on down, Madam Chair McCarty, where's yours?
Thank you, Speaker Colleagues. I wanted to ask if Madam Chair can amend and add on number or letter B 0209-21. Speaker, that legislation passed unanimous at the Nabakia TS. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, colleagues, Madam Chair Charles Newton, there's a request to modify add-on legislation 0209-21, which is item number B, sponsored by Madam Chair McCarty.
Thank you, Speaker Damon. Thank you for asking that question. Speaker, I do have a question before making that decision. With 0209-21, I see that it is allocating funds from Sihiston for water projects. Would this, if we took from Sihiston, would we also be taking from ARPA to replenish Sihiston for this project? Thank you, Speaker.
No. The answer is no. The only way that if this legislation 0209-21 does have language in there that says you're authorized to get, if available, to get reimbursement from certain federal funds, including ARPA. But let's say that this does pass, you put it on here, the president signs it into law. Madam Chair, Charles Newton, you would, at the time that the new ARPA legislation goes through the process, you would have to make sure that this is actually in that legislation to get reimbursed. It doesn't automatically get reimbursed by ARPA or any other kind of federal dollars. It is eligible to be a reimbursement cost, but it's not automatically a reimbursement cost. With that, there is a request to modify, to add that in as a consent agenda item. 0209-21.
Speaker, based on your explanation, I'm going to say that I think that this is an important legislation. I don't mind adding it to the consent agenda. Of course, it is available to come off if any delegate wishes to debate it. So I will be fine with adding 0209-21 to the consent agenda. Thank you.
Speaker, point of privilege.
That item number B is added on. Honorable Freeland, point of privilege.
Just in regards to your discussion on Shamayaj's legislation 0209-21, what you said about it not being eligible for any federal funds.
No, I said it is eligible.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to ask that question. Also, could it be eligible for FEMA reimbursement at 100% right now as well? That's my point of privilege or question privilege. Thank you, Speaker.
But the answer that I can't answer that question. I'm not a technical expert in there, but what I can answer, Honorable Freeland, is that if this is eligible under FEMA dollars, then what we would have to do is apply to get those dollars reimbursed under there. But it does have the language in there to get reimbursed by any federal dollars. Honorable Freeland.
Okay, thank you, Speaker.
Okay.
Just asking that because currently we had 100% reimbursement on FEMA. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, then yes, it could. But you would have to talk with the technical experts to get that reimbursed and work with Office of Management and Budget. That, colleagues, moving on down. Honorable Elmer Begay, then Chairman Daniel So on the consent agenda item. As of right now, before we go to Honorable Elmer Begay, we have item currently B, E, F, J, L, M. With that, Honorable Elmer Begay, the floor is yours on the consent agenda motion.
Okay, thank you for that, Chair White, Speaker Damon. I have an amendment made for legislation on J, legislation 011-22. Is that the one that is going to be on the consent agenda?
Yes. So you're wanting to take that off the consent agenda?
Yeah, can you put off the agenda?
Okay.
I mean, after consent agenda?
And that's referring to the Dene College?
Yeah.
Okay. That item number J is removed off the consent agenda. That, moving on down. Chairman Daniel So. Good afternoon, Chairman. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Philip. I'd like to, and colleagues, I'd like to request of Honorable Chair Charles Newton to include legislation 0037-22, item N on our agenda. For the consent agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. That, Madam Chair Charles Newton, there's a request to modify your consent agenda items to add on legislation 0037-22.
Speaker, I'm fine with that.
That, Honorable Vince James, you good with that? Okay.
Yes, I'm good with that. Speaker, thank you.
Great, thank you, Honorable James. That, colleagues, any other comments, questions at this time? Honorable Otto So, then Chairman Hino.
Thank you very much. I would like to hear a little bit more of 209 on the presentation. The other is G, H, and N. Might as well put it all on and finish business today. Let's just finish business today and today. So that's what I would like to include on to the consent agenda. Thank you. Reserve my time.
Honorable Otto So, reserve your time at 4 minutes, 15 seconds. Honorable Otto So, you're requesting to add on to the consent agenda G and H, legislation 0050-22, which is sponsored by Honorable Stewart, and then also legislation 0252-21, which is item number 8, sponsored by Honorable Vice Chair Smith. That, Madam Chair Charles Newton, there's a request to modify.
In.
N's already on there. Honorable Otto So, those two. Madam Chair Charles Newton.
Speaker, in terms of legislation 0050-22 and legislation 0252-21, at this time, I think that there's still a lot of questions regarding these two legislations per my notes from Nabikiaskit, so I will not add those two legislations. And Speaker and colleagues, the reason I did the consent is based on our Nabikiaskit meeting with these legislations. We did debate these legislations, but these legislations got a complete green vote. And that's the reason why I did request at this time to do a consent agenda. Thank you.
Hey, that, moving on down. Request isn't taking up Honorable Otto So. Moving to Chairman Hino now in the queue. Chairman.
Speaker Damon, the 24th Navajo Council. Madam Chair Charles Newton, thank you for making this motion for the consent agenda. Vince James to second. Requesting that letter I that has been debated at Nabikia Committee, and most of the concerns were towards the BIE and not to the actual amount. So, and then it did get a unanimous vote. So, to add this to the consent agenda, so it has already been debated. That's my request. So reserve my time.
Reserve your time at 4 minutes, 19 seconds. That, Honorable Madam Chair Charles Newton, legislation 0004-22, sponsored by Chairman Hino, is a request to modify to add that, which is currently number I under our agenda, onto the consent agenda motion.
Thank you, Speaker. I do remember the debate regarding that legislation. I'm okay with adding that to the consent agenda.
That, colleagues, moving on down. Chairman, or Honorable Daniels, Honorable Herman Daniels, floor is yours at this time.
Mr. Speaker, good afternoon, colleagues. 24 Navajo Nation Council.
agenda with this amendment again consent agenda by case yes, this went through committees, and now council spring session agenda because name Adonana Bashanegi later than that is the crazy that is la the same that is from AD ila based on again. This is I am dot in short other thing other that is from so Kadona Gaita ila better hot skin point we're only on the second day of spring session we have 3 more days. So I'm saying this for the people that is and I abandi for Papa for consent agenda. No, Shannon, well, it on for Mr. Speaker, reserve time.
Speaker, this is Vice Chair Smith. Put me in the queue.
Thank you very much, Honorable Daniels. With that, Honorable Vice Chair Smith, floor is yours.
Thank you, Speaker, and the Nomination Council. On this consent, I'd like to remove item B, E, F, and I. I have questions on those 3 or 4 legislations that are dealing with funding, and then 2 are 2/3 vote regarding the agenda for funds that are being allocated. Just like my constituent said, they did on his. This is the people's money, and they'd like to hear how we're using this funds. I'm not saying I'm against it, but I'd like to have them understand how we're allocating this funds and what we're using it for. On behalf of the Navajo people out there, how are they going to benefit from it, and how we could probably do some amendments to that if we need to on behalf of these fundings, because we're really dipping into the citizen dollars and other funding that's there on behalf of the folks that are listening in on the Navajo Nation's spring session, Shenanda. So those are the 4 items I'd like to remove. Reserve my time. Thank you.
Reserve your time at 3 minutes, 35 seconds. With that, B, E, F, and I are taking off. That, as we stand right now, colleagues, with consent agenda items, it's L, M, and N. Any other further comment? Honorable Kealan Begay, you have no more time. You didn't reserve your time.
Point of order.
Point of order, Honorable Kealan Begay. What is your point?
I have a question on all of the legislation. That's my point of order, Chair. Speaker, thank you.
That motion, there's no consent agenda items on L, M, and N. That, moving back, Madam Chair, Charles Newton, if you want to withdraw your motion, but
Speaker, could I ask a question? A point of order was called by Delegate Kealan Begay. And my understanding with a point of order per the Navajo Nation Council Rules of Order, Rule 25, it's to make a remark that appears to be in violation of the established rules of the council. and that's when a point of order can be raised. In this case, I am reading Rule 25, and it doesn't say that a point of order can be used to debate a legislation. Here in this case, you did state on the record, Speaker Damon, that Delegate Kealan Begay was out of time, and yet he called a point of order to say that he has questions on all of the legislation. That should have been raised when he had his remaining time. You are recognizing him to raise debate during a point of order. So I believe that the correct ruling should be that the remaining legislation 0025-22, 0032-22, 0037-22 should stand. In addition to that, Speaker, I'd also like to point out that within our Navajo Nation Council Code, under Title 2, Subchapter 2, Section 163B as in boy, under agenda, it does state the agenda shall allow for inclusion of a consent schedule, which is listing of resolutions, which will likely be approved by unanimous consent of the delegates in attendance. The consent schedule shall be developed by the Speaker upon request by any delegate, and item on the consent schedule shall be moved to the regular schedule on the agenda. The Speaker shall move any item on the consent schedule which receives more than 5 minutes of debate or questioning to the regular schedule on the agenda. So with that being read on the record, Speaker, I know that we have had two colleagues who are concerned about what people are thinking at this time. It is within our code and within our rights as a council delegate to ask for a consent schedule in the event that there is a likelihood that a unanimous consent will happen. Based on my notes at Nabikiaskit with these legislations, there was no debate, and most of these legislations did receive a unanimous vote in passing the legislation. Now, I did ask for a consent agenda, just as a reminder for those who are listening in. Council delegates do receive payment for attending council session each day, which is $60. It's not $60 an hour. It's not $60 a legislation. It's $60 for one whole day. So at this time, I thought that raising this consent agenda based on the laws that are written within the Navajo Nation Code, based on my right as a delegate, based on the notes that have been provided at Nabikiaskit, the legislations that have been put on the consent agenda are legislation, again, that did receive a unanimous vote, and there was debate that was provided at Nabikiaskit. So with that, Speaker, I would like to say again that I believe that your ruling to recognize Delegate Kealan Begay's request to remove the remaining legislations off the consent agenda is wrong. And I'm asking you to re-rule on that, since you cannot debate a point when a point of order is called. Otherwise, you are setting precedent for all delegates to be able to debate a legislation when a point of order is called. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Charles Hunt, for that. Right here. Thank you. And in that, where Madam Chair, Charles Newton, going back to your point of order, I do agree with what you have said in indicating in the result, but just to keep the commission, the council going collectively, that's the reason why, because I know that once we get back into giving delegates the authority to remove further items off the agenda, then that time, maybe it was to give light that there would be additional individual colleagues of ourselves that were going to remove L, M, and N. So I can see what you're saying, and I do recognize that. I have a question now, just reading what has been stated for us and what Office of Legislative Services has given to me. When was this? What colleagues, I'm gonna have to get an opinion on this from Office of Legislative Counsel. Ms. Barbara, under CJY 26-19, there was an amendment to the Navajo Nation Council Standing Committee Rules of Order. Now, in the Standing Rules of Order, there was this language that was added. It says the agenda shall allow for the inclusion of the consent schedule, which is listing of resolutions that will likely be approved by unanimous consent of the delegates in attendance. The consent schedule shall be developed by the chairperson upon request by any delegate with appropriate exhibits, reports, and other matters available for review. Prior to the meeting, items shall be reviewed from the consent schedule on the request of any one committee member for any reason without debate. That's where it takes the items that is referring to. Items shall be removed from the consent schedule on the request of one of the committee members from any reason without debate. Items not removed shall be adopted by unanimous consent without amendments or debate. Removed items may be taken up by either immediately after the consent schedule or placed later on the agenda as at the discretion of the committee. My question to Office of Legislative Counsel is that resolution CJY 26-19 amended the Standing Committee Rules of Order. Now that Standing Committee Rules of Order didn't amend what Madam Chair Charles Newton is referring to in 163 agenda, which is 163B. Now in 163B, in there, the language that has been identified as items that shall be removed from the consent agenda, items shall be removed from the consent agenda on the request of any one committee member from any reason without debate. So my question to Office of Legislative Counsel is the consent agenda item that was amended under CJY 26-19, that doesn't apply then to the Navajo Nation Council rules of order, correct?
Point of order.
To the that's my understanding, because there was no correction to the amendments to the code or to the council's rules of order. That's my question to Office of Legislative Counsel. Madam Chair, Charles Newton, point of order.
Yes, Speaker, my point of order is I believe that that you actually are asking for an answer which doesn't really, well, let me take a step back. A point of order was raised by Delegate Kealan Begay. And per Rule 25, it does state it says, if a motion, procedure, or remark appears to be in violation of the established rules of the council, any council delegate may raise a point of order. A point of order motion shall not be used to engage in additional debate. You recognize Delegate Kealan Begay. At that time, Delegate Kealan Begay stated that the remaining legislations, which he did read on the record, needs to be removed for the consent agenda because he had questions to them. You recognize his request, which technically is a debate that was made at point of order, because you also stated that Delegate Kealan Begay had no more time. As soon as you reported that he had no more time, he called a point of order. And then he further debated the consent agenda, which you recognize, Speaker.
Yes.
So that's where I was making the correction that, number one, you recognize a debate that was taking place by Delegate Kealan Begay when he called a point of order. And his point of order was to let you know that he has issues with the consent agenda, which in my opinion is a debate, because you stated he had no more time left. So that is the question, is are you going to recognize this debate when a point of order was called? Because this ruling is going to set precedent for future debates, and that will allow council delegates to be able to call a point of order and debate the issue at hand. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. As indicated, I did state that when you did raise the first point of order, that I did recognize that, and that recognition was wrong. So I do state I understand that. So that's the reason why I stated the reason why I did it at that time. So at this time, the amendment is still abstaining to L, M, and N. Let me just say that for now. But Madam Chair, Charles Newton, I'm further researching this information now, trying to get back to a consent agenda. On CJY 26-19, there's been precedents where at council, there has been items that if a delegate did not want a consent agenda item, it was removed. Already, we made that precedent. But in reading it now, CJY 26-19, where the language states in there that items shall be removed from the consent schedule on the request of any one committee member for any reason without debate. That is only in the standing committee rules of order. So I'm asking council, Chief Legislative Counsel, in that when CJY 26-19 was passed, that legislation specifically modified just the council rules of order. So when you're raising the consent agenda items, I'm going back now to the original impact or the original motion that states that there is a possibility now that there is no authorization for any of your colleagues to remove an item off the consent agenda due to the fact that CJY 26 19 only is referring to the committees, not to the council. So that's why I'm asking Office of Legislative Counsel to give me further, if that's what CJY 26 19 has done. That's why I'm asking for their review of that, because if that's the case, then Madam Chair, Charles Newton, we're going back to your original motion. Office of Legislative Counsel?
Thank you, Speaker. I have to say I'm a little confused on the question as to why we're trying to make CJY 2619, which has to do with the committee rules of order. I don't see that as being applicable here. What I think you're looking at is the Navajo Nation Code 2 NNC 163B, and that speaks to council allowing for a consent agenda and how that works. And what 163B states is that the agenda, and we're referring to a council agenda, shall allow for inclusion of a consent schedule, which is a listing of resolutions which will likely be approved by unanimous consent of the delegates in attendance. The consent schedule shall be developed by the speaker upon request by any delegate. An item on the consent schedule shall be moved to the regular schedule on the agenda. So that is what I think you're operating under here. And CJY 2619, that applies to a standing committee. Consent agendas on standing committees, not at the council. So I think, so at the council, you rely on 163B, which does allow, upon request by any delegate, an item on the consent schedule shall be moved to the regular schedule on the agenda. Thank you, Speaker.
With that stating, this is my ruling, Madam Chair. Moving back on the consent schedule, you initially, Madam Chair, have identified to put on B, E, E, F, J, and L, and M. That was the original motion. And through the response, there was colleagues that have added B, I, K, and N. Now, in that, there's colleagues have asked of that to be put on there. And it's up to you, Madam Chair, as a motioning party to keep those. The reason why we went to utilizing the method of identifying items that could be removed by consent schedule on the request by any one committee member for any reason without debate is because there was precedence before in council that has happened. But now in the correct action moving forward, 163B states that you can put together your consent agenda item and no delegate can remove those items off of there, Madam Chair. So at this time, Madam Chair Charles Newton, with the consultation and the debate on the floor, what is your position on your motion at this time to clarify? And Madam Chair Charles Newton, if you have to remember that whatever consent agenda item that you have currently right now, if that's all of them that you're putting on back into the pot, and Vice Honorable Vince James is good with that on the second, we vote that and that passes. And it gets a 16 votes on the amendment for the agenda. If we go to this item and if there is allowable debate on it, if the debate is longer than 5 minutes, at that time if it goes over 5 minutes, the whole consent agenda falls apart and then it goes back to its original intent. Madam Chair, Charles Newton. So I turn the floor over to you.
Thank you,
Let
Speaker.
me make sure that the what I read in 163B is correct. Is that what you see in the reading? Sorry to cut you off, Madam Chair, Charles Newton. Is that what you see, Ms. Barbara, as the Chief Legislative Counsel?
Speaker, this is Ms. Bobroff, and I agree with the way you've stated it. I would point out that the last sentence of section 163B is poorly written, but nonetheless, it is within our laws. And so if there is debate that on the consent schedule, which receives if it's more than 5 minutes of debate, it gets moved to the regular agenda. Thank you, Speaker.
And is does that determination can begin now, correct? Because we are actually debating the consent agenda. Ms. Barbroff.
No, Speaker, I do not believe that 5 minutes starts now. The way that last sentence is crafted, it talks to the fact that the Speaker shall move any item on this consent schedule. So I interpret that to mean is that the consent schedule already has to be established before the 5 minutes kicks in.
Okay.
Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Ms. Barbara. Again, turning the floor back over to Madam Chair Charles Newton. What is the way that you position your consent agenda at this time?
Thank you, Speaker Damon, and also Ms. Bobroff, thank you for that interpretation. Speaker, per the rules in the Navajo Nation Code, it still does state that there can be a consent schedule that could be included where there are legislations that are likely to be approved by unanimous consent. The original consent agenda that I did propose was to include legislation 0045-22 because at Nabikiaskit, it did receive a unanimous consent vote. At legislation 0048-22.
No, we'll just go to the vote.
That legislation at Nabikiaskit received a unanimous consent vote. Legislation 0011-22. That legislation was debated and it did receive, I believe, and I honestly didn't check to see if this received a unanimous vote, but it did pass. Legislation 22 did receive that I believe that was included on a consent agenda that did receive a unanimous consent vote. 0032-22, that legislation, when presented, did receive a unanimous consent vote per the consent agenda. And legislation, I'm sorry, those were the original ones that I had included because it did, per my notes, receive the unanimous consent that was required. And this was done at Nabikiasket, where we have time to debate the legislation. Other legislations were added on, and there was the request that was made by.
Point of order, Speaker. Point of order.
Speaker Callen.
Honorable Callen, what's your point of order?
My point of order is that while we align another delegate, giving them additional time during their point of order, if you can give me some more time to debate on this point of order as well. So Rule 26 does say that the point of order is not subject to debate, and I'm not sure why my point of order is being debated this long.
Honorable Callen, no.
I'm not on a point of order.
Thank you, Honorable Callen. I did address your point of order. We are not on that point of order no more. We indicated that I needed clarification on the consent agenda items. We got that consent agenda item. I went back to Madam Chair Charles Nguyen to clarify what specific items are on her consent agenda motion. And at this time, I do believe it's E, F, J, L, and M, correct, Madam Chair? Honorable Vince James.
Yes, Speaker.
Are you good with that? I can't hear you, Honorable Vince James. Honorable Vince James is good. Let me go back to the floor. Chairman Rick Nez, a new player, on the consent agenda item.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker Damon. I know Fennicky, response on it. Paradise must on must go. The crop on 8 inigi. It's what we do. It's our job. We're lawmakers. We legislate each and every legislation, but at times we put them on consent agenda. Perhaps, Speaker, we should have started with a prayer this morning. Even though we had a recess, maybe that's what we need, is a prayer every morning. It shouldn't be a problem to pray, but I'm sure some of you already prayed. Let's just vote on this, to vote green or red. If we want our people to listen to each legislation, then let's just vote appropriately. Transparency. I think that's where we'll find out when you vote. Transparency. Although we debated at Navigator, 2/3 vote. We're spending a lot of time on this right now. But it's educational to learn more of how we could use some of these rules and should not use them. I reserve my time.
Okay. 2 minutes and 53 seconds on reserve time. Any other questions, colleagues, before I go back to reserve time? We'll go back to reserve time. Honorable Otto So, 4 minutes, 15 seconds.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I have my, I'm ready to make my decision pertaining to this proposed consent agenda. With that, I'm gonna yield the rest of my time to Kealan Begay. Thank you.
Okay. With that, Honorable Kealan Begay, 4 minutes flat. Floor is yours.
Speaker, Dos and Anna Senegi, Joe Banate Iniki, Hit Ada, Kodo, and then Linigi, Benas, a lot of time we flip flop. One time we were saying that we need to debate each legislation on its merit, but yet we say that let's push legislation, put it together, and then approve it with no debate. Even if we just go with the regular legislation list, I mean, yeah, let's vote on each of the legislation the way we're going to vote. Legislation liniki na etikidiki ba shehwalo jo etini dot the shna, and I did not reserve my time. I always think I guess I do neglect to do that when I ask for the clarification. So ben go chairman speaker Kodosha says the consent agenda ninigishet at in the legislation niki bahna etiket shehwalo halad nen linigin laten da east agi hailed la peso da het ato hit a peso linigi be chita eto chita beni it a peso aj go ye lana da asli jo be da hozen dot nen linigi be benas be yel tio shi at est ani ko on la committee de be kidney credo don jo be kidney. I don't think that's a good justification. I mean, a lot of us at the committee level have a consensus vote, but yet it's always been once it gets to a different committee. Nabi committee is Nabi committee. The council session, we're at a different stage. There's a different rules. Kodo ba yel tiegi bebe nashiko kodo be his ani lingi di kabinyabichi di kodo ke neligishin hijo ba yel tidole at each legislation as it's being read, and each legislation has its own single vote on each legislation. So that's my request, Speaker. So with that, I do have questions on all of the legislation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kealan Begay. That, moving on down on reserve time. Chairman Henio, 4 minutes and 19 seconds.
Deshina, Speaker Day mentioned that I know it's the 24th Navajo Nation Council. So, one question, Speaker, and this would be to you or Legislative Council. So earlier this is the original motion with the original listing of consent items. Although we started adding Shidot now. So does that take us out of the picture then, to where we cannot add legislations to the original listing to modify the motion? That'd be my question. Reserve my time.
Reserve your time at 3 minutes, 44 seconds. I'll go to Office Legislative Council. Barbara. Ms. Barbara?
Oh, gosh, I apologize. This is Miss Bob Ross. I was talking while I was muted. I apologize. Okay. So what I was trying to track what was going on here. There were numerous, started out with the original consent agenda. Numerous things were added. Delegates made objections. So those things were taken off. The last step was with Delegate Kealan Begay, who did not like who mentioned that he wanted the remaining items removed. So right now, you don't have anything on the consent agenda. However, Delegate Henio has asked if that means that there cannot be a consent agenda. I believe that if a delegate wants to try once again to add something additional that's not already been objected to, they do have the option to do that. So I hope that answers the question. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you. Modification is requested to Madam Chair Charles Newton. If she accepts the modification, colleagues, then that's a possibility to move forward. That, moving on down, Honorable Herman Daniels, 3 minutes and 35 seconds on reserve time.
Mr. Speaker, thank you again. I'm ready to move forward with no consent agenda. So on the day that every legislation individually, again, let's be transparent. Transparency for our Navajo people are listening to Sokoto, so even yes, Sokoto. We have up to Friday, 5 days in Ecuador sessions. So I'm ready to move forward with no consent agenda. Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Daniels. Moving on down, Vice Chair Smith, 3 minutes and 35 seconds on reserve time.
Here, last speaker, so the Bishop's on Ding. Irish casting does not transparency that you know. Asa no, I bandit, yate. According to his better husband, he lives in Nanigi, in an Sholodo, every nashta, your castle han had it. Of course, and dash holder. The Joda di Lito, the Giatido, shout down the Case, bonnet, so. I call cases transparency that you know. Ala have Bishmas and even in Ado, talk here the Itlado, or that Slido, Ado Giat Hito, Ado Ahazano, bladed. Fanahane, his harness Lin died this kid. Ado call kid had any Masani Chedo, his gate and Denigi. Neither kid be the Sala. Kohashita, what are Ilya died this kid. But Ahane, at Deno, to Yash Hoda. Hashit caution and did that eggy, Benina Aidan, Hoda, hit that sauce. Ehotabi had this Shinada, but not Linigi, did a consentigi, why is it Bas Kido, obeying the DJ though, 2/3 vote, the Baka, a call, obeying the DJ, though Yash Hoda. But I'll be at this, although. One so be at this though. Reserve my time in case I need it.
That reserve your time on 155. Moving on down, Chairman Nez, 2 minutes 53 seconds. Then I'll go back to the sponsor.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker Damon. I'm just going to go ahead and waive my time. I'm ready to vote.
Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Chair, Charles Newton. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak about the reason why I did the consent agenda. First, I want to say that I am so excited that we have delegates who are talking about being transparent, because I know that I have been transparent since becoming a council delegate, and I have been criticized for being very transparent. But there's another word that I would like to introduce, and that's efficiency. Right now, every delegate does get paid $60 a day. That is for 23 delegates, that's $1,380 a day. Plus the $80 speaker that you're making is $1,460 a day that we are costing the Navajo people. Plus travel and reimbursement. So when we're talking about being transparent, we also need to include in there being efficient. Every single delegate had the opportunity at Nabikiaskit to speak about this legislation. We were transparent. We were on Facebook. There were also press releases that were sent out. So I don't really understand this argument about being transparent. What I think we should be doing, and what every delegate at one time or another has stated on the record, is whether we are being efficient. My understanding of the consent agenda is this is a way to be efficient. When we have debated a legislation at Nabikiaskit and there is a unanimous decision, a unanimous vote that has been taken, and we agree to that legislation through a unanimous consent, those legislations then become eligible for a consent agenda. So what I have seen and what I know with each one of these legislations that have been proposed for a consent agenda is they have been debated at Nabikiaskit. I have heard delegates say that our general funds are going to be decreased here in the next few years. So I think when we're talking about being transparent, what we need to do at council is we need to make sure that we don't ask the same questions over and over. I have witnessed that as a delegate. What I will say, Speaker, is in terms of being transparent, we have been transparent. Each one of us was given a voice at Nabikiaskit to debate the legislation and to vote according to the record. And I do recall there are some delegates that have...
I'm sure Charles Newton, hold on. Point of order.
This is Daniels, point of order.
A point of order by Honorable Herman Daniels. Honorable Herman Daniels, what is your point of order?
Yes, we're beginning to be all over you. Let's go back to the need and ask for the Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Honorable Daniels, as a sponsor of the amendment, if there's any questions or comments that are made during an amendment that is raised, there's always an obligation to give that time back to the sponsor to explain. And I do believe that that's what Madam Chair Charles Newton is doing at this time. So it doesn't matter if there's time or any given or additional reference. I do believe that Madam Chair, what she is trying to do is explain to the council the position that she's raising on this motion. I can't speak for her, but that's what I'm thinking right now. Madam Chair, Charles Newton, if you go back to the response of your colleagues on what has prescribed from the beginning of this debate, when you raise this motion, I'll turn the floor back over to you.
Thank you for that, Speaker. So as I was stating, this is within the Navajo Nation Code. It is a law that a council delegate can raise a consent agenda. And again, perhaps I'm wrong, but I think that the fact that the code does state under section 163 that if there is a likelihood that the legislation will be approved by unanimous consent, then they can be raised for consent agenda. And there were questions about transparency. As stated earlier, these legislations were already heard at Nabikietskit, where we had ample time to debate the legislation. Now, if we chose to put these legislations on consent agenda at Nabikietskit and vote to move them forward, that was a choice that we made as a council to do so. And by doing so, we unanimously approved those legislations. So, Speaker, I just want to say that for those delegates who are talking about transparency, that there is also efficiency that needs to be taken place during council session. And if the law requires or the law does state that a consent agenda can be raised by any delegate in the event that there's a likelihood that the legislation will pass with a unanimous vote, then as a delegate who has read the law, I am going to raise that and say that as a means of being efficient, that this is something that we should be doing for those legislations that had not been, there was no debate raised and that a vote was immediately taken on the legislation. So thank you for that, Speaker.
Thank you very much. That on the motion for a consent agenda item, I do have a new colleague in the queue, Honorable Yellow Hair. Floor is yours. Honorable Yellow Hair.
Hello, Yate, to the speaker. See, I don't, I thought the vote that the Nihat Kinode don't Yate. I said, let's make it to the point now. Let's vote on it. Yeah, I'll wait my time. I'm ready to vote. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. That I don't have anybody else in the queue, so we'll go back to reserve time. Chairman Henio, 3 minutes and 44 seconds.
I appreciate getting us to the Speaker Damon and for providing the clarification to the question. So listening to Alpha Legislative Council and the response to the question I posed, it states that there is a 1 in a million chance reality. So I figured there is a chance. So I'll take this and ask for a modification to add letter I to the original listing. That means by a request to the Speaker Damon, those to Ship Agent, Madam Chair Charles Newton, reserve my time.
Reserve your time at 3 minutes, 8 seconds. Madam Chair Charles Newton's request to modify adding in item number I on our current agenda, which is legislation 0004-22.
Speaker, point of order.
Yes. Honorable Keon Begay, point of order.
Okay, I'm not debating, but I just made a statement when I had the time that was yielded to me that I have question on all the legislation. Shouldn't that nullify all the proceedings now?
Honorable Keon Begay, as clarified by Office Legislative Council, that only happens at committee levels, not at the Navajo Nation Council level. So we can still proceed forward with the consent agenda items. You can ask at the time when you're allocated the time to Madam Chair Charles Newton or whoever raises a motion to the consent agenda to have items removed off the consent agenda at council, but you cannot forcibly at like the committee levels ask for individual items to be removed off the consent agenda. Honorable Keon Begay. That, Madam Chair Charles Newton, request to modify to add on item number I, again, 0004-22, sponsored by Chairman Nuno.
Speaker, on the record for legislation 0004-22, what was the vote at Nabikiate?
Let me get that from, let me go to Mr. Rico.
21 in favor, 0 opposed.
21 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you, Speaker. In my book, that is a unanimous vote that was taken. So I will accept legislation 0004-22 to be added to the consent agenda. Thank you.
Honorable Vince James, good? Honorable Vince James, good. That, moving on down. Vice Chair Smith, 1 minute, 55 seconds.
Committee level, and it's or could and open to chati ordered consent in here ordinary. Of course, could bounce case with Ella without our shindo us bez ani, though a joint he saw the show out our Ziagoshin yat eto go be as and do na kinzo. What our obey had this and Adam Ligi here lad does not slash get an offenny. I call it all.
Thank you, Vice Chair Smith. Everybody else in the queue at this time, going back to Chairman Hino, 3 minutes and 8 seconds on reserve time.
Yeah, no, I waste my time.
Colleagues, everybody else in the queue. Madam Chair Amicati, I see you in the queue. Order staff, you didn't reserve your time. Thank you. With that, Honorable Slater, I'm playing the tapes over here. Rewinding the tapes. Honorable Vice Chair Slater, floor is yours.
Thank you, Speaker Damon. I think based off this discussion, I'd like to add 209-21 and then 37-22 to the consent agenda. Thank you. I'll reserve my time.
Honorable Vice Chair Slater, 4 minutes and 53 seconds. 53 seconds. There's a request to modify to add in item number B, legislation 0209-21 into the consent agenda item. Madam Chair Charles Newton. And legislation 0037-22.
Thank you, Speaker
Which is
Damon.
B and N.
And in lieu of the CNN. In lieu of the rules that were read in the Navajo Nation Council that's clearly printed, I'd like to ask for legislation 0209-21. What was the vote at Nabikiasha?
Twenty in favor, 0 opposed on legislation 0209-21.
Thank you, Speaker. For legislation 0209-21, I believe that was a unanimous vote. So I will approve legislation 0209-21 to be added to the consent agenda. In terms of legislation 0037-22, what was the vote at Nabikiasha?
On legislation N0037-22, the vote was 20 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you, Speaker. For legislation 0037-22, in fact, in light of the vote with 20 in favor, 0 opposed, I believe that was a unanimous vote made by council. So I would like to include legislation 0037-22 to the consent agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, Honorable James, on legislation, adding those two, you good? Honorable Vince James is good. That, colleagues, as it stands right now, we have consent agenda motion adding on B, E, F, I, J, L, M, and N. That.
Point of privilege, Kalen.
Point of privilege, my Honorable Kalen Begay.
Requesting the legislative council every time that there's the modification of each of these consent agenda proceeding, I believe that each delegate will have a new timing for the debating of adding or deleting of these consent agenda items. Speaker, I like that from the legislative council. I'd like to speak on it.
Thank you. Also, legislative council, when there's a modification to a motion, the Honorable Kalen Begay's question is that allocate for a new 5 minutes? Historically, it was just on the main motion, so we're still on the same motion. Office Legislative Council.
Thank you, Speaker. So you're in a situation where a motion is made, a delegate uses their 5 minutes to address the motion, and then after they're finished, the motion is changed substantially. If the delegate is not allowed additional time to speak to that, it doesn't make sense for the delegate not to get additional time to speak to the changed motion. So I believe in fairness, there should be additional time allowed. I'm going to defer to Mr. Rico, but I do not believe that situation is addressed in the council rules. I'm looking through them right now. I'm not finding anything. So I think, Speaker, that is at your discretion. Thank you.
Mr. Rico.
Thank you, Speaker, and members of the 24th Nomination Council. Just straight off, we've always, used the 5 minutes. We've never given extra time, but if you look on Rule 11, going to Rule 11C, a delegate recognized by the speaker shall be allowed a maximum of 5 minutes to debate the legislation or issue before council. The delegate may yield his or her remaining time to one other delegate. D, no delegate shall be recognized more than once to debate the same issue, except if the delegate expressly reserves a part of his or her 5 minutes for rebuttal or to answer questions. I don't believe the rules of order addresses modifications to main motions or amendments. Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Honorable Keon McGee, with that, in this case, you were allocated time, but you didn't reserve your time. Honorable Keon McGee, what I can say though is there is some colleagues that do have additional time that I can ask members of the 24th Navajo Nation Council to allocate some time to Honorable Keon McGee as he has questions on the motion as it stands. With that, colleagues, going back to the main motion, Honorable Stewart, on the main motion of this amendment 1 to the agenda or amendment to the agenda. Honorable Stewart.
Speaker, on the colleagues. Speaker, I do have questions on 020921 as well. So I kindly ask to remove that from the consent agenda. And then the remaining of my time should get to my Key Allen idea.
Honorable Keon McGee, 4 minutes and 37 seconds. And then I'll go back to you for the modification request, as those it's all under the same 5 minutes, Madam Chair. 4 minutes and 37 seconds. Honorable Keon McGee, floor is yours.
Speaker, he had none on this kodo. Jo kodo bias gish do chat to kodo times it's when lagi. To each, I mean, the other area that we need to consider is that if we approve, we were talking about several millions of dollars that we're going to just approve with no further debate before the public. Halit at Ensign, Jutikatani, Hajota Ilan, 3 or 4 legislation. She's going to pass it if we're making this position that these legislation had no debate, no. But I could end it and then now I probably can't. I have to support the consent agenda because the veterans legislation is in there now. I understand, and I know your the strategy that the council is doing, in a way, and what in last point of
order, Speaker. Point of order, Speaker. Point of order. Point of order. Point of order, Speaker. Point of order. I don't believe that Delegate Keon McGee is hearing me call a point of order. Point of order.
Speaker, if I could continue. You're not recognizing her?
He's not recognizing because he stepped out.
Sorry, colleagues. I needed to use the restroom. Madam Chair, Charles Newman, there's a point of order.
Yes, Speaker. I am looking for the rules that allow a delegate to speak on an issue. What I am also looking for within the rules are accusations that are made by a delegate and how that is handled. the fact that Delegate Kealan Begay is questioning the 24th Navajo Nation Council with hiding
Point of order, Speaker. I'm not
something.
making an accusation.
I would like to
I'm
know
making a statement
where within the rules
of the
it
timing
states
that I
that
was
he
provided,
can do
Speaker.
This is an accusation made against the
I didn't
entire
hear the
24th Navajo Nation Council.
I'm sorry, I was using the restroom. I did not hear what Honorable Kealan Begay was indicating. I can have the staff replay that. But if there is any, or if there were accusations that were put in place on the floor of I just
Speaker,
can't. I don't
it's
know
Rico.
where Honorable Kealan Begay was talking. I'm sorry, I was not here in the room at that time. I needed to use the restroom. Honorable Kealan Begay, if there was anything, I'm not too sure, but maybe if there was the refraining of anything to keep the debate simple back to the subject at hand. And that's what we're doing, is just concentrating on the consent agenda items. Madam Chair Charles Newman, I don't know what rule you're referring to right now, but if there is actually a rule, I can refer back to that rule. Is there a rule?
Speaker, that's what I'm asking you. What is the rule on accusations that are made on the floor by a delegate against the 24th or against the council as a whole?
Point of privilege, Kealan.
Eugene So, Speaker.
Conduct of committee members.
Question of privilege,
Delegate
Speaker.
nomination council to comply with the rules of order shall be deemed disorderly behavior. There's nothing that, again, I did see that was found upon that at this time. But the purpose of the council's rule of order is Rule 2, the conduct of a council delegate. Rule 3 is the conduct of a council delegate during session. Turning back to that, Honorable Kealan Begay, question of privilege, point of privilege.
Question of privilege, Speaker.
Honorable Kealan.
Speaker, Kealan Begay, point of privilege. My point of privilege is what specific accusation have I made? And then also a point of order, delicious. Speaker.
Speaker, I think this can be cleared up if you could rewind the tape and allow everybody to listen to what was said and allow the World Wide Web to also capture the statement that was made by Delegate Kealan Begay.
Honorable Kealan Begay. Hold on, colleagues. Hold on, colleagues. I'm going to Honorable Kealan Begay's first as point of order. Then is there? I can't. When you're raising your point of order, can you state your name behind it? I can't. I don't have the screen. Colleagues, our staff.
Question of privilege. This is Edmund.
Okay, with that, Honorable Kealan Begay and then Chairman Yazzie. Honorable Kealan Begay, what is your point of order?
Speaker, can you also replay what Delegate Judith Charles Noon accusing the council that we don't read our policy, our law? Because that's an accusation right there as well in his previous statement. Speaker, play that as well.
Colleagues, I can.
Speaker,
we can play everything back and forth right now. Colleagues,
Speaker.
I'm gonna. Edmund Yazzie, what's your point of order? And after your point of order, I'm going to sit down and with the staff replay what I missed while I was using the restroom for 45 seconds. And then I'm going to go ahead and make my determination moving forward. Honorable Chairman Yazzie.
Speaker, thank you. This is quite, I don't know what else to say. But anyhow, my question of privilege is with all this questions and issues brought forth, if I could make the motion to recess so we can gather our thoughts and, and come back and regroup, Speaker. That's my question of privilege. Can I make the motion to recess, sir?
No, I'm just going to go into recess. We'll recess for 30 minutes. You don't have to make it. Thank you, Chairman. I couldn't
Thank you,
recognize that
Speaker.
on a motion of on a point of order anyways. Thank you very much, Chairman, for your recommendation and all Eugene. So colleagues, so we're going to recess for 30 minutes. 1:22, come back at 2:00 actually. First